Happy Friday, everyone. I hope everyone's safe and well as we get ready for session number 5 in live from Redfearn's bar from Barnsley Football Club Supporters Trust. After a technology hitch and a technology last-minute winner over us on Tuesday, we're back with this rearranged fixture. I'm sure for a lot of us, a Friday night had normally been spent with friends in town or down the local pub, so we hope this can go some way to filling that void for you this evening. Everything worked last night with Craig Ignat, so fingers crossed tonight's going to be exactly the same. If you missed that interview, you can watch it in full on the Barnsley FC Supporters Trust YouTube channel. So moving on to our very, very special guest for a live from Redfearn's bar session this evening. It felt like we needed to take a break from the dizzy heights of Wembley, the old Wembley, the penalty shootout win at the Millennium Stadium, and there's no better time in our history to reminisce about and no better player to do it with than midfield general, dynamo, goal machine. The words are endless, Neil Redfearn. So, evening, Redders.
Evening. How are you doing, guys? You all right?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Look, huge thanks on behalf of the Supporters Trust and all Barnsley supporters for agreeing to do this. I know there was a lot of disappointed people on Tuesday night when we couldn't get it to work, and there's people been looking forward to it all week. So, hopefully this will be a good one. I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
Before we start, a bit of somber news today. So, we had the terribly sad news that Norman Hunter had sadly passed away. A hugely popular name amongst Barnsley fans and football fans in general, really. And from a personal perspective, the streams of memories being shared on social media today are the closest I've felt to being part of that era and what many count as one of the best Barnsley sides in history. All our thoughts are with Norman's friends and family at this difficult time. Neil, I know you met Norman quite a few times. How much of an impressive figure was he?
Well, he was a big influence on my life and my career. I mean, obviously, as a young boy, my dad used to take me to watch Leeds, and he was part of that, really successful Don Revie side, and that was a big influence in me and and what I did as a young player growing up. Taking the full circle, if you like, full spectrum to when I became manager of Leeds, and I got to know him even better. Just a really good guy. Always there for you. He came up with loads of good tips and his experience of the club and and the situation that we was in. And to be fair, all that side, people like Eddie Gray, Norman, Alan Clark, were just really good for me. At the time when it was a tough time for the club at Leeds, and he's just a special man. And not only was he a great footballer. And a great advert for the game, if you like. He did well at a lot of clubs. Obviously, got Barnsley promoted in the 80s. It's such a sad loss. He was just a really genuinely, great guy.
Yeah, I really appreciate those thoughts. I think they're echoed by a lot of people that had worked with him over the years in football. So sad loss for everyone. In terms of tonight's stream, all the questions have come in from Reds fans across the internet, different platforms. It was impossible to avoid every question that was asked in the Daydream Believers film, but we've tried our best to mix it up a little bit so there's no repeats. And for those of you out there, if some of you haven't seen the film yet, please go and buy the DVD as a lockdown treat to yourself, because it's a superb showcase of that promotion season, the Premiership years, and it was a great set of Barnsley fans working on it. All the money that made went to support local charities, and that included a £500 donation just last week to Barnsley Food Bank Partnership. So if you've not seen it yet, get online, get yourselves a copy, and enjoy it a dozen times, 24 times, how many times. It's so good. Right then, should we get started with the Oldham days?
Yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah.
So you made the move to Barnsley in September 1991, and you went on to play nearly 300 games, scoring over 70 goals. Was that move to Barnsley a difficult one, considering you'd scored the penalty that won Oldham the league, you'd been an ever-present, and you'd not got your chance to perform in the top flight, which you quite rightly deserved, in our opinion?
Yeah, I mean, the problem that I had at Oldham, I wanted to play, and obviously the manager at the time, Joe Royle, had just brought Mike Milligan back from Everton, and I've been playing central midfield, and like you say, that season we got promoted, scoring goals, and a little bit disillusioned, at the end of that I didn't really get the opportunity to sort of go and prove myself. But when the Barnsley offer came up, obviously Mel Machin was in charge at the time, and it was a real opportunity to play at a good level. And obviously I got sold a dream by Mel Machin, if you like. But but Barnsley had always been a good footballing side, and and I thought that I could go there and enjoy it and ply my trade, and try and do well, and obviously the rest is history.
So you signed by Mel Machin, you played under Vim Anderson, and you got to the promised land with Danny Wilson. How different were those three managers, and how did they compare to what you were used to before?
Yeah, well, I mean, Joe Royle at Oldham was a very positive manager. If we conceded a goal, he'd take a defender off, put another striker on, and would just go after teams. And obviously, it worked for him. I think when I signed for Barnsley, I mean, obviously, only speaking to Mel Machin, and then when I actually worked with him and worked under him, it was a little bit more studious, perhaps. Mel, a little bit more defensive minded. It was about structure and shape. And I think that in the end, that sort of became his undoing, if you like, because he got good ideas about the game. But I think the players were sort of there were players there that were better than perhaps that they were being allowed to show, and I think that was maybe the frustration under the initial stages at when I first signed at Barnsley. But no, I mean, obviously a top football man, good guy. He was a nice guy, genuine guy, but it just didn't quite work for Mel.
And was Barnsley a club that you settled with instantly? And who were the first players that you bonded with?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I first signed, I played in midfield with a guy called Brendan O'Connell. And I hit it off with Brendan straight away. I mean, he was very similar to me in how he played. He was all action, with a real camaraderie. And, in the end, we had a real understanding where, at that time, at that level, that type of football, it was about competing in midfield and getting tight and getting your foot in. And, and we got that off to a T as a pair. We used to go after teams and put them under pressure and make it difficult for midfields to play. And I really loved playing with Brendan. Plus, as well, he was a good lad and a good laugh. And but with good players like Jerry Taggart, another great player, real character. You just didn't know what Jerry Taggart were going to turn up on a Monday morning. But we used to prop him up through the week, get him out there on a Saturday, and he was brilliant. You know what I mean? But through the week, you could forget him really, because he liked to drink, Jerry. And but we knew what we were going to get, and he was a good footballer as well.
I think the Jerry Taggart questions probably come post 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, I think to be fair to Jerry, he obviously he must have known his own body, because I mean, he did like a drink. Never missed a training session. But you got bare minimum through the week. But on a Saturday, you got everything. He sort of transformed. It was almost like a butterfly. You got this chrysalis through the week, and at the end of it, this top footballer came out and played out of his skin. But real characters, and good footballers. I'm thinking back now, and this is what I'm saying. It was frustrating at the time because there were players there that were perhaps better than what they were being allowed to show. Gary Fleming, another good footballer. Steve Davis, good footballer. Lee Butler, good goalkeeper. Andy Saville, Andy Rammel, good strikers. And maybe under different circumstances, they would have been allowed to bloom, perhaps.
And then it was a challenging season under Vim Anderson, who was your manager after Mel Machin. I think we won 40 of the first 20 games, so it was a pretty dreadful start.
Yeah.
But then things picked up slightly after Christmas, and we won, I think, 7 in 9. What turned it around that season under Viv? And did as a squad, did we look at relegation as a serious threat that year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing, I mean, obviously Viv initially came and played, as with Danny. Both came. Viv came as player manager, Danny came as player coach. Both top footballers. But you could tell that was perhaps taking its toll on. It's difficult to play and manage, difficult to play and coach. But I mean, we used to try and play good football. He wanted us to play out from the back, Viv, and we were sort of getting bits of it. But in the Championship, if you don't get everything right, then you can go on a bad run. You can start getting beat every week. And I think that I think we needed some sort of common ground. A balance between playing Championship football and obviously then the beliefs that Viv wanted to put us out there on the pitch.
Sounds very similar to this season at Oakwell.
Yeah.
So Viv only lasted that one season, and then he chose to go join Brian Robson at Middlesbrough. Was that a surprise to the squad at the time?
Yeah, a little bit, because obviously, it was this big vision and this big turnaround, and I mean, a lot of his ideas were fantastic. I mean, he's played at a really high level, Viv, you know, international footballer. I mean, I knew him, or he didn't know me perhaps, but I knew him from my time as an apprentice at Forest. You know, and a really good guy, likeable guy. Danny, that was the first time I'd ever met him. But what come across with Danny was like a real strength, you know, and a real desire, you know, to do well and succeed. And he had a real belief about how his team should play or how the team should play. So it was no surprise, perhaps, in the end that, you know, that Danny did get the job.
That was going to be my next question. I was going to say, did you think Danny was going to get the job that summer? And
Well,
what did he change when he took over?
I think what happened is that I think all the lads were hoping he was going to get it, you know, because we wanted a little bit of continuity. And I think in Danny, you know, he definitely going to bring that. And I think it was such a relief for the players when he did get the job, because we'd already had a change with Viv, you know, Mel Machin going, you know, what you don't want is a short space of time, is another change and another change of direction. So I think the lads really warmed to it, to be honest with you. And I think that, I mean, for me, looking back now, Danny's biggest influence over us as a group of footballers was actually his influence on us on the pitch, because he made us play the way he wanted us to play, and he had the strength, the character, and the strength of mentality to make us do it. And you know, we used to play some fantastic football. I mean, in the end, it was you know, the famous, it was just like watching Brazil, but it needed a strength behind it. And obviously, the masterstroke then was including Eric Winstanley, you know, because then what you've got is an outstanding talent as a coach. You know, had a real belief in us playing this way. You had the managers backing for him to, you know, to take training and get his ideas across, and the lads just, you know, really lapped it up, and it was what he was crying out for, to be honest with you.
You touched on it there. We played some really good football under Danny for a couple of years, and looking back over our shoulder at the relegation zone wasn't in our thinking anymore, and we were only looking up. In that summer of '96, do you remember sitting down at any point with Danny and the coaching team and discussing what the club's aspirations were for the season?
Well, I think what there'd been is just a gradual upturn in things. Do you know what I mean? And I think it was like if you like, a momentum from season to season. And I think that everybody were quietly confident that we could have a really good season. But you know, it's just the championship and the nature of the championship. And unless you actually start the season and it starts to unfold, and you see the first 4 or 5 games, you can't really, you know, see where you're going to be. But you roughly know that you're prepared. You know you've got a good squad. You know it's balanced. I mean, the really good thing that we had a really good mix of vastly experienced players and young players. You know, and I think that particularly in the championship, you're only as good as your experienced players. You know, because if you've not got that, then you can play well and still get beat. You know, and it's that game management and understanding that. And we had an abundance of players that have been at the club. You know, and to be fair to Danny and Eric, they brought people like Neil Thompson to the club, who were an outstanding fullback. You know, Arian Dazoo were a massive signing for us. And these were just, you know, real round pegs in round holes that we needed at that time to add. And I think what we forget as well is, you know, with some really outstanding young talent coming through, and this is where Eric's vision sort of kicked in a little bit, because you got people like Nicky Eden, Andy Little, Dave Watson, Chris Morgan, you know, Scott Jones. They were all really talented young players, and it just supplemented the squad. It was a perfect balance. It was almost like the perfect storm. It came together at the right time.
And we started that season off like a train. I think we only lost something like 4 games before Christmas in total, which was phenomenal as a start. At what point did you personally start thinking, this isn't a playoff spot campaign, this is a automatic promotion campaign?
Yeah, we played West Brom away. I think it was the first away game, and we beat them. And they were one of the fancied sides to go up. You know, everybody talked about them getting promoted. And I just had a feeling that day, and I think it went right through the players, that we got a great chance. You know, we got what was needed, and I think it gave us a massive boost. You know, to actually go to the Hawthorns and win. I think it was 2-0 in the end, and it was a comfortable win. You know, Clint scored, and I think Lids and a Little got one. and it was a comfortable win in the end, and we just played them off the park. And if that was the best that the division had to offer, then we'd got a great chance.
And not only were we top of the league at Christmas after that Sheffield United away win, but we had a great post-Christmas win against Man City as well. And then in January, we had these back-to-back defeats. Did you have to pull the squad together and aim to go again? Because was it an easy squad to get motivated after defeats?
Yeah, I think it was the process. That was the big thing, and I think that although you did take notice of the results, and you got down if you got beaten, you just elated if you won and you put some wins together. That was fantastic. But I just think the training was so good, and the process of what we wanted to do to get us there was so good that the players just massively believed in it, and it was easy to take defeats because you knew you'd go back out the next game. There's a great chance you're going to go and win. And there's sometimes in your career, and you'll ask a lot of pros this, they'll probably say the same thing, is that there's some moments in your career and sometimes as a player that you've just got a really good feeling every time you turn up in the tunnel that you're going to win. And it doesn't matter what the opposition does, you'll beat them. And we had that feeling. It was almost like this invincibility, and really defeats didn't come into it. We just had a massive belief that we could beat teams.
And then plenty of tense moments followed, and for fans and probably for players as well. Hours spent watching the Wolves results as much as ours, just seeing it all come in. As the captain and driving force, how much did Danny lean on you and the other pros like Tomo, Hendry, Wilkinson to help us get that promotion over the line?
Well, I think that was the beauty of the experience in the dressing room, because we not only got experienced players, we got good people, good experienced people, and obviously, Danny was only, wasn't long from retired from playing himself, and we just got this understanding of what he wanted. We were very much on a par with, there was no barriers whatsoever, with talking to the manager or the manager talking to the players, or, and it was a real good place to be. And I think that maybe the only pressure started to come on us as a side the nearer we got to it. So the nearer we got to the end of the season, here we looked like we were going to go up and get promoted. Just through the rest of it, through the course of the season, it was just an enjoyable thing to do. It was just a fantastic place to be, playing and winning most weeks.
And can you remember whether the team talks started to change as the season drew closer? So Danny being fairly inexperienced himself in terms of fighting for promotion at that time, did you notice anything different in the way he approached it?
He was always a good motivator, Danny, and he was always a good people person. He got he was likeable. He got this likeable way with him. Obviously, Eric, took a lot of the training, but there were their ideas, that were out there on the training ground. But I could never ever remember him being uptight. Or the only time we got a lamb blasted, I think we got beat 4-2 away at Portsmouth, and I think that Addy got dug out because I think there was like a jacuzzi in the hotel where we stayed, and he'd gone into the jacuzzi, and Danny must have found out. So obviously, we let 4 goals in, they beat us 4-2, and Danny was saying, you shouldn't have gone in that jacuzzi and all these things were starting to come out, and there were a little bit of tension there after that game. But I think even after that, we got his heads back on, we got back to doing it. We stuck together. I think that was the biggest thing, the fact that we stuck together as a group. And
do you think that Desir example, do you think that was Danny getting a bit nervous himself, or would he have done that back in October as well?
I think just a bit of frustration. No, I mean, at the time it was just something that was there that perhaps Danny didn't want to happen. But the bottom line is we'd got beat as well, so there was an opportunity. And the daft thing is it probably put us back on track. Because if we'd had gone a little bit of complacent, then it just straightened us up a little bit, and it gave us a little bit more momentum for the running.
And did you personally feel more responsibility as captain, as a player who'd done all this before, 3-4 years ago?
Well, it's funny because, I mean, I obviously, when I first signed for Barnsley, it weren't so good. I think we were second bottom of the league. We got 1 point. And I think we got the second point of the season. I think my first game was away at Derby County, we drew 1-1. And so, and obviously the Mel Machin era, perhaps wasn't a great era at the time. So to witness that, and then witness, Viv and Danny coming in, and then Danny taking it on and taking it up, and being at the top of it right at the end of it, when it was probably the most successful time in the club's history, was just a fantastic thing to witness. And I think maybe what I felt was just that you just wanted to carry that momentum on, and you wanted these lads that have put so much in, and Danny and Eric, to get the rewards for what they deserved.
And I know the Daydream Believers film goes into it in massive detail, but we can't not have some words on the Bradford game. So how nervous were the squad heading into it? Or were you personally full of belief? Were the team full of belief?
I think we're full of belief. I just think that not nervous before the game. I think that we were focused and we knew what we wanted to do. I just think the shock came when I thought Bradford were brilliant.
They started really well.
they played out of the skins, and at 0-0, I think they hit the post and flashed a couple wide, and you could see the lads looking at one another, thinking, this ain't going to be as easy as what we thought, sort of thing. But then we got the goal. Wilco gets the goal, from Endo's cross, and it just settled us a little bit, But we're still a lot to do. Still at 1-0, it's a dodgy score. But I just think when Clint's goal went in, it's funny because the build up to Clint's goal, we had the ball, lost it, we had the ball, lost it, we had the ball, lost it in midfield. And you could actually see us having a go at one another, like there were me and Shez. And this usually happened in a game. Shez would have a go at me and I've had a go at him. And, I'd be giving it, hey, Ryan, or you're giving the ball away and have a get your little go and win it back. So, you know what I mean? It was that sort of thing. And it ended up when I flipped it out to Clint, and he done brilliant. He let it run across his body. And when the keeper was going one way, he just smashed it back across the other, straight in the corner. And then that was it. All the arguments went out the window. Everybody was smiling. Everybody had a big smile on the face. With that, it's like, 5-10 minutes to go. But at 2-0, there's no way back from. And it was just a case of managing it through then. But no, great day.
And how did it feel at full time, being hoisted on shoulders, paraded around Oakwell at the end of the game? Did you find the time to breathe it all in and realise what you'd achieved for yourself, the club, the town?
Yeah, it was just a fantastic occasion. And I think there was relief there because, it was a sellout crowd. Everybody had turned up. It was a fantastic occasion. And you just didn't want to let anybody down. I think that was the big thing, more than anything. But it was, looking back now, I mean, the quality of the football probably wasn't the highest, but as regards as an entertaining game, it was entertaining because they played the part, Bradford. And I felt a little bit for Bradford City. Obviously, I ended up signing for them, 3 or 4 years later. And it's the first thing the Bradford supporters talked about, the game at Oakwell when, where they looked like they were going to go down and we got promoted. So no, I mean, it was just a fantastic day, and just the feeling of elation for everybody. The supporters, more for the supporters really as well, because obviously they've been with us through thick and thin. Just great people of Barnsley, and a really nice time for them.
So promotion's in the bag. We go down to Oxford on the last day of the season. What's the pre-Watershed story from that game, and how badly out of shape were we before that 5-1 defeat?
Well, yeah, I mean, we did celebrate, I have to say. I mean, and obviously the Oxford game came around pretty quick, and I think that everybody knew, but I think that we just wanted to go out and put a performance on. But it was so difficult to concentrate in that game because you knew what we'd done, we knew what we'd achieved. Oxford had a point to prove. We're a promoted side. They played to the top of the game. We were still a little bit hungover, but it didn't stop people celebrating. My only casting thoughts of that game was must have been 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 that turned up at the Manor Ground, Barnsley fans, just to see a red and white at the back and them celebrating. I can't remember anything about the game. I know I scored, but I can just remember them celebrating, and that was the most important bit for that day.
So we've got promoted. We're in the Premier League.
Yeah.
You're walking out as captain in that first ever game, and then you go and score. What did that feel like from start to finish, that whole game?
Well, obviously, once we got promoted and we're playing at that level, and it's a different kettle of fish because, obviously, I'd never played at that level. We've got two or three players that had played at high level, John Henry, Paul Wilkinson, but I've never really played at that level. So you're hoping that you think you're good enough, but you're hoping that you're going to be good enough. And I think that initial opening spell, when we got his noses in front, we got the goal. It was a real relief, that here we are good enough. We started off like house on fire before we got his goal. We created quite a few chances, and I had a real good understanding with Paul Wilkinson, for the goal. I played with Wilco at Watford. He's a big target man, and obviously for me as a midfield player that gambled on that like to score goals, I mean it was the perfect foil. So as the ball got played in by Nicky and Wilco pulled out, I just knew where to go. And as he's just steered it back across, it was just a matter of trying to steer it onto the target. And it went in, and it was just a sea of red and white shirts at the back of the goal that went up. And just a great feeling for them and great feeling for us as well.
And the team really ran its blood to water in that first match against West Ham. What was the dressing room like after the game? Did you take positivity from the fact you'd given West Ham a good go? Or was it
I think so. I don't think there was any disappointment. I mean, obviously, West Ham were going to be probably one of the mid-table sides in that division at that time. And the disappointment was, getting beat, obviously. But I think that we took enough out of that game to know that if we strung enough quality together, with a real chance of getting results at this level. But we didn't know that opening beginning period was going to be so tough, because we took some right hammerings, initially. But we did show a lot of resilience, and I think that if one thing, that group of players really did have, a resilience to go and bounce back and do better again.
And you briefly touched on it there, but we did have a tough start. And what changed after that run of 7 defeats? Was it just that we started to get to grips with the pace, the tempo, or did Danny and the coaching team make some adjustments?
Well, I think what we did, I mean, listen, like I said, I mean, I was one of probably the majority that had never played at that level. And I think that what we did was we started to find his feet a little bit. I think we'd one or two team changes. I think we went back to, to a similar side that got us promoted. I think that helped. You know what I mean? That's no disrespect to the, the overseas players that came in. But we had that familiarity about ourselves. So we started to gain a little bit of momentum. But I just don't think his resolve, ever disappeared. I don't think we ever believed that, or we only ever believed that we're going to be all right and we're going to stay up. So, I think it was just a general feeling of, if we can keep going and keep playing as good football like we did. I mean, we played some outstanding football, even at the top level. Just a little bit of naivety that undid us. That we've played that good football, that'd see us through.
And we had some really impressive wins that season. We beat Villa away, Liverpool away, Sheffield Wednesday at home. Which win do you remember that meant most to the players or meant the most to yourself?
I think the away win at Liverpool. I think that was massive, because obviously we took a bit of a walloping at Man United 7, and obviously Liverpool classed as one as the top 6. And I remember that day. I mean, there were a couple of changes. I think we signed a centre half called Markstead. I think that was his debut. And obviously, I don't know if Watto had got injured, and Lars Leeser was in goal and played out of his skin. I mean, the only problem was that day was we actually scored too early. And it was like we kicked a wasp nest over, because after we scored, for the next 80 whatever minutes, we just defended and chased and tackled and battled and fought and, and picked ourselves up and, rode us luck a little bit at times, you've got to say, but played really well, and to actually go to Anfield and win 1-0. And probably in the end, I mean, they will say that, they had the lion's share of play and created chances, but probably on the day deserved it. Was a really good feeling, and a real boost for the lads.
And everyone talks about that famous Anfield atmosphere. As players on the pitch at that time, could you feel the natives getting restless the more and more the minutes ticked by?
Well, yeah, because I think Jamie Redknapp played in midfield that day for Liverpool, and I remember him his shooting were getting worse and worse and worse. And you know, I think the lads, you know, you can't resist. You know, when his shooting started, we were saying like you're getting further away, like Jamie, your shots are going that higher and higher. You know, and you were like giving them a little bit of stick and all this, and it was starting to rattle him a little bit. You could see it, you know. But I just think that that when they put the board up, I think they put the board up, it was something like 6 minutes. That last, you know, few minutes seemed like a lifetime, you know, and you're just running on empty, you know, you're chasing and tracking runners and trying to get your body in and blocking, you're organising and talking to one another. But just a massive relief and a massive, you know, feeling of elation to go to Anfield and win 1-0.
So they're the most impressive wins, but we had a few crushing defeats as well. But
Yeah.
was the defeat at home to Liverpool the hardest one to take?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because I mean we played ever so well. I mean we were beating them with 10 men. We were beating them with 9 men, or we were drawing with 9 men. And the referee, was it Roger Willard, or I can't remember his name. Willard.
It was Willard. Gary Willard.
Gary Willard. You know, he was just sending people off for silly things. You know, I mean, my biggest worry was at the time. I don't know if I think it was Chris Morgan that went first, and I'm thinking.
Barnard went first.
Barnard, yeah.
A little trip that was 25 yards from goal.
And then I'm thinking to myself, Shez, I've got to keep hold of Shez here because, like, I know what he's like. You know what I mean? Because he fights for his mates, and he's one of these. With the bookings are getting dished out, he's first in the queue. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking I've got to keep him away from it here because if we get down to 9 men, we're struggling. So all the time I'm trying to keep Shez. Because every time he sends somebody off, Shez is going to the referee, and I'm trying to drag him away and all this. I think I don't want him to get, but and then I think he had a swing at Paul Ince, and that was Shez off. Yeah, so that was him off. So yeah, I mean, it was just a surreal day. I mean, we actually played really well in the game, and I remember after the game, there must have been the best part of 5,000-6,000 supporters waited for the referee on the road at the back, you know, of the main stand, and you know he obviously realised that he'd made a big mistake, and I think he took the players off initially when the supporters started coming on the pitch, and I think he just knew he'd lost it. But it was just one of them where you was just, even with, like, you know, if we'd have got 2 sent off, we were still in there. You know, we were still sort of hanging on in there, and a point out of that would have been a decent point. But he just never gave us a chance, the referee, with his performance.
And whilst I wouldn't expect you to condone the fans running on the pitch, was the feeling amongst the squad that they understood it because it had been that much of a travesty?
Yeah, I mean, it was. You know, listen, you don't condone any supporters coming on the pitch, but you know, it was such a blatantly bad performance by the referee, and so biased towards Liverpool. It was a bit scary, you know what I mean? And you're thinking, like, do they not want us in the division or what? You know, a bit weird. And you just try and be as professional as you can, you know, and you try and keep the lads on because you're just trying to keep players on the pitch, you know. And I remember Danny shouting on, look, you know, stand up, stay on your feet, don't dive in, don't give him a chance to send anybody else off, you know what I mean? But no, it was just a frustrating game. Yeah, he probably actually spoiled a really good game of football, the referee.
Because there's some good goals.
Oh, some great goals. Liverpool wanted to play. They came to play. They were open. They were, you know, and obviously we were playing really well on the day. So yeah, just disappointing, really.
And then we were relegated at Filbert Street, losing 1-0. What was morale like at full time on the coach back or on the pitch? And what did you and Danny say to the players?
Yeah, I mean, you just didn't want to believe it. You know what I mean? I mean, it ended up being a really sloppy goal, you know, that sent us down. But it probably wasn't so much that, you know, it was some games where I think if there were some games we were lost by the odd goal, I think if we could have nicked some draws in them, you know, it would have been all right. But I think that just you know, we knew we'd done really well to do what we'd done, you know, and we'd give ourselves a fighting chance, and we'd gone right to the wire. So, you know, although there were massive disappointment there, You know, the feeling of just a feeling of determination to want to, you know, to want to put it right. But it's almost like the final whistle, the life sucked out of you, and you know you don't really know what to do. You know, you're consoling your mates. You know, Danny's always really good in situations like that. Always positive. Always got the lads on side, and you know, got to stay together again. But that was a really tough day.
And on to my next question, which you comment on draws probably brings this true more than anything I can say. But we managed 10 wins that season. So we won more games than Everton, more games than Bolton, Palace, Wimbledon. We were relegated by five points in the end. And there's some much so-called bigger clubs than Barnsley have performed a lot worse than that. Do you think we never really got the credit we deserved that season?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think at the beginning, because we were getting some real wallopings, I think, you know, it was more. It was almost like people wanted us to do well. You know, it was almost like you wanted the underdogs to do well. You want them to, you know, you want them to get it going. But in the end, I think people really appreciated the type of football that we played. I mean, I'm thinking, you know, and I'm looking back to, you know, the cup runs that we had, and you know, the cup run really helped us. You know, I'm thinking that when we went to Old Trafford and we got beat, you know, 6-7. You know, and Alex Ferguson coming out after the game and saying, you know, they're a lovely little club, Barnsley, and they play good foot, and I hope they stay up. And it was really condescending, you know. And then when we played them in the FA Cup, we beat them, knocked them out, beat them 3-2. You know, the pitch was crap, the ball was square, the ref was. This is Ferguson after the game. It's like music to your ears. It's what you want to hear. You know, you want to hear him moaning rather than saying, you know, they're a lovely little side. So we climbed a mountain that season. You know, it's just a real shame. And I honestly believe this. I think it's a real shame for the Premier League that Barnsley didn't stay in it, because I think we played the right sort of football, and I think we were entertaining. You know, I think we got after teams, and I thought we played attacking football, and I think would have been good for the Premier League. But you know, you've got to get enough points to stay in.
And you touched on this as well earlier, just in terms of the summer signings, and that, you know, it felt like we got the blend of youth experience and overseas signings in the promotion season, right? And then in the summer in the Premier League, we signed a lot of players from abroad. Do you think if we'd have got the signings of Ward and Fjørtoft in the summer, or players of that calibre, that would have been the difference between the bad start and the kind of catching up that we had to do?
Yeah, I think that maybe hindsight's a wonderful thing, in it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, and you've got to try and make best plans, and probably Danny, you know, spent what he thought was right in the budget, you know, to get us in. You know, we wouldn't have had the biggest budget, I wouldn't have thought. But I think that there would have been a lot to say for. I think that the fact that we got promoted and how we got promoted, I think if them lads had stayed together and started the season off, I think we would have got a lot of results with momentum. I think we'd have beaten the odd side. Yeah, we might have got the odd walloping, but not. I don't think we'd have got as many. And I think just the fact that we knew one another as a team, knew one another how we played, I think we'd have got some results with momentum. And then maybe 2-3 months into the season, then maybe look to start signing players. You know, then look to maybe bring some, you know, some British home-based players in, or some maybe overseas players that have played in the Premier League. You know, the Premier League was new to some of the lads that were coming in, and you know, it was difficult for them as well. But like I said, I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
And how are the dynamics in the dressing room over that summer pre-season, when you're seeing these players come in from abroad and you've got this tight knit group? Is everybody so welcoming, or does it cause a bit of diversity and challenges?
I think that, you know, the only angst or anguish comes in when, you know, when the season starts and players start getting left out. I think because there's such a good group of lads, and I think that was one of the main things that got us promoted, to be honest with you. The fact that we was all together, you know, a real togetherness. You know, we win together, we lost together, we played well together. If we didn't play well together, we'd sort ourselves out. I mean, it was one of the best group of lads, and the most vocal group of lads, you know, in the dressing rooms at half time. And, you know, we were good with one another, and we was honest as a group. And I think that maybe got overlooked a little bit. And like I said, I think that would have got us some results, you know, along the way. and it's no coincidence that, you know, we reverted back to some of them lads, you know, sort of through the season, and it did give us a boost. You know, it did give us a lift in results and performances. But like I say, I mean, eyesight's a wonderful thing, but it's always difficult to sign for the Premier League. I think it's difficult to recruit at that level. It's difficult to recruit, full stop. I mean, it's all, you know, if you get recruitment right, you've cracked it. But you know, but if you're recruiting for the highest level and you've not got the best budget, it's tough.
And you mentioned this earlier, the FA Cup run that season, we got to the quarter-final. You said that gave the squad a lot of belief. Just how much belief did it give them going out and beating Premiership teams every round?
Well, that was the thing. I mean, I know we knocked Man United out. I mean, we knocked Spurs out. You know, we knocked some really good football sides out. I mean, they must have been sick of us, Spurs, because every time we played them, we beat them. So, you know, we just proved that we could, you know, on his day, we were good enough, and we were capable. And I think what that did, it was almost like every win that we got and every good performance we got against a good side at that level, it was almost like a shot in the arm. And it gives us a little bit more belief to go on, you know, and go and take the others on. I don't think we ever suffered that badly with defeats, and I'm not, you know, as regards mentally, I think that, you know, we did take some wallopings, but it didn't sort of knock us resolve. I think you know, the resolve was always there.
And obviously, we had that Man United game at Oakwell and under the lights, 3-2. Just how much of a surprise was it seeing Scott Jones in the starting lineup that game?
Well, I mean, listen, you know, Eric had brought these young players through, and Danny had the belief to put them in, you know, and he trusted them. And we just looked at, I mean, obviously Scotty had been training with us, and we just looked at him as another talented young player that were getting an opportunity, that were capable. I mean, what he was for I mean, he wasn't he's not the biggest Scott, but what he was for a smallish lad, he was unbelievable in the air. You know, he could run and climb for a smallish fella. And he was positive. He used to attack things. And, you know, I remember when we did the set players before that game and we worked on, you know, he didn't like things whipped in towards him, Peter Schmeichel. He didn't like coming for things. And I think we were aware of that. And I think the first goal was we had a free kick, and I had the free kick out on the left and we curled in towards him, and it was almost inviting him to come. And Scott went in brave and he turned his back a little bit, Schmeichel. And Scotty got in there brave and put it in. And then obviously, you know, his second goal from the corner was just an unbelievable header. I mean, all I did from the corner was just left it at the far post for him. And he just went and attacked it. And there was only one person going to win it, and that was him. And we had to hang on a little bit. But, hey, it's Man United. You're going to have to hang on a little bit, aren't you? You know, but just you know, like I said as well after the game, you know, the reaction of, you know, well, they beat us, but the pitch weren't right good and the ball wasn't, you know, it's like, great. It's what you want to hear. You know, you want to hear them moaning a little bit. I think they moaned about the dressing rooms as well. They had to leave half the skips in the corridor and stuff like that. It was brilliant. It's perfect.
I was going to say, we as fans, we hear a lot of stories about the fact we turned the heating off for the away dressing room and made it as difficult as possible. Were any of those true?
Well, the old dressing rooms. I mean, ours was a decent side, but the away dressing room was quite a small dressing room. You know, and it was difficult to get skips in and out, and there was a bit of a turn, and you know, you had to sort of obviously Man United turned up, and they must have brought half the wardrobe with them. You know, must have brought about 14 skips, so they couldn't get all the skips in, and they were moaning about the skips, and you know, the lads were laughing. So, but no, it was a great night. It was a great night, and for me again, richly deserved. You know, we deserved to beat them. We were better than them.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we were drawn against Newcastle in the quarterfinals. It was a tight game, and you know, with a bit more luck and support, I think we could have probably won that game and got to the semis. What was the feeling in the squad about the AD Moses red card against Newcastle?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of them. I think Shearer on that day was unbelievable. You know what I mean? And I think AD had been fantastic, you know, all season. But I think that I think Shearer sort of old-manned him on that day. You know what I mean? He sort of drew him into a challenge that perhaps wasn't a challenge. And I remember the second goal that you know that really put us out of it. And it was a fantastic header from Shearer for the backstick. I remember Gillespie going down the right and putting it in. You could see him pulling away. But obviously, you know, you're talking about world-class players. But, I mean, on the day, I would have said that we played all right, but I've seen us play better. Do you know what I mean? And there was a little bit of disappointment there where, realistically, having beaten Man United, you've got a great chance. If you've got in the quarterfinals, you're playing Newcastle, whether it's home or away, you've got a great chance of getting the semi-finals and the final. And I think I don't think we did enough on the day, if I'm honest.
And I don't think there's many Barnsley fans out there that don't look back on that Alan Shearer performance, just think it was a load of antics and, not happy with it. But as a squad, was there ever a point in that season, taking into account the Liverpool game, where you felt like the officials had it in for us?
Well, definitely the Liverpool game, obviously. It was just the little things, the little things where the referee would call the opposition by the first name. And it was like, "Oh, you, us, come here, I want a word with you." You can't tackle that, or you're getting booked, or like it was your first challenge, you get a booking. And it was almost like not that they didn't want us in there, because what you're saying then is the cheating, but it was almost we were sort of regarded as second rate, which was wrong, because we weren't. We was there on merit, and we deserved to be in there. So yeah, there was a little bit of that bad feeling.
And then we were obviously already relegated when we had that last game of the season at home to Manchester United. From a personal perspective, did you approach that game thinking this is the last time I'm going to lead Barnsley out, or was that not in your mind at that point?
Well, no, it wasn't even in my mind, to be honest with you. Obviously, I knew I'd done well that season. I knew the side had done well. At that point, I'm thinking, well, if we can keep all this together, because I'm thinking back now to the quality of football that we played and how strong we were as a side, that side would have breezed its way back up. If everything had been kept together, Danny, myself, I think we'd have come straight back up, no problem. But again, there's things that happen. Football owners and chairmen and the football club obviously comes first. And things happen in football, and players have got to move on, managers move on. But just disappointing, because if I'm honest, at that point, I'd have liked to finish my career at Barnsley, because I'd got that used to being at Barnsley. I were happy in what I were doing. I were comfortable in my surroundings. I were playing the best football in my career. You know what I mean? And why would I want to move?
And were you ever close to staying, or was it always inevitable at a certain point that you were going to leave?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had an agent at the time, a guy called Mel Steen, and John Dennis, the chairman, went down to see him, and I was presuming that there was talking about a new contract, and about me staying there. Obviously, I was on not bad money, but for what I'd done, for the club, then I should have been probably one of the top paid players, and I wasn't anywhere near. And I was hoping that was going to get resolved, and I could get back on it, and we could go and have another go, because as a squad, even though it's some we're probably a year older as a group, but the experienced players are still young enough to get us back in there. We've got all these young players that have been blooded, which were obviously going to carry the club further forward. So for me, the right thing to do was to keep everything together and have another go. But obviously, things didn't happen that way.
And who else was interested in you other than Charlton, and why Charlton at the time?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I think the move, though, the Charlton move suited my agent, if I'm honest. Looking back now, I think it was beneficial for him. I think he had a relationship with the Charlton owner at the time. There were clubs that came in. Sheffield Wednesday reportedly coming for us, Everton. Around Christmas time, there was a rumour that Leeds had offered Alfie Haaland and money, but I never, I don't know if that was right or not. But you always got speculation, but to be honest with you, I was just so happy doing what I was doing, and enjoying the fact that we were in there, and like I said, and I think that was probably the most important thing the most important point is that the lads never dwelt on defeats. They were more interested in the process of how we got there and the good football that we played, and we loved coming into training. We loved training as much as we loved playing. So it was just a really good time to be around the club. So, I know a lot of players go for the money and stuff like that, but for me, the most important thing is enjoying your football, because your football only comes round once in your lifetime. You've got to enjoy it when you can enjoy it. And I think that at that time, it was for me in particular, it was a really good place to be.
And you've said yourself a few times, hindsight's a wonderful thing in football. But from your time at Charlton and then with Bradford, did you learn anything about how to approach a relegation fight? And was there anything that you saw that you thought, God, this had developed us at Barnsley that year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult because I mean, listen, each club's have got promoted on on their merit and how they play. I think probably the mistake that was made with Charlton was, I think the manager Alan Kirbysley saw all these goals from midfield, 15 goals from midfield in Premier League, and thought, I'll stick that in midfield, and if he can get double figures, that's gonna give us a great chance. But I don't think he looked at how I got him. You know what I mean? And I don't think he realised, the contribution of Martin Bullock, Clint Marcel, Nicky Eden from fullback, and me now looking back and, having managed and looking at how things work, if you're building a side around goal scorers, then you've got to work out how they get them, how they score them, because there's no point. Because what happened at Charlton, they stuck me in a 4-4-2 system, went go and play in midfield, but as well get me double figures, which is near on impossible. I was given the license at Barnsley to get forward and get round the box. I had creative players round me with me, and obviously that was a massive help.
And we're on to the last few questions now. So I know Gardener's World's at 8:30. So these are not bunched together in any real order, but you just talked about being a manager and how different that might be when you're a player.
Yeah.
Where's Neil Redfearn at now with aspirations to manage in the Football League?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love being on the grass with players. I've had a taste of management. I can manage. I did a good job at Leeds. From being in a really tough position, took over a difficult job at Rotherham. But that hasn't fazed me one bit. I've experienced all sorts of things in the game. I've managed in the women's game, managed in the men's game. I'm a vastly experienced football person, so I'd still like to be in the game at some point, and pass that experience back on. And you just never know. I would have never have said that I was going to get the Leeds job. You didn't know what's coming. You've got to be in there and you've got to be around it, to have the opportunity. And I think what I have got is the pedigree and and the CV that that's going to get me another role. So definitely looking to get back in. Yeah.
And this is an easy question, but maybe not an easy answer. Favourite Barnsley goal?
Favourite Barnsley goal? Probably the one up against Newcastle in the Coca-Cola Cup.
Yeah.
League Cup. And it was on my left foot, and I could strike them with both feet. Right foot, obviously better, but it sat up lovely. And there's a guy called Pavel Cernicek in goal. He was a great goalkeeper. And he was just slightly off his line. I must have been like, 35 yard out. And it just sat up beautifully. One of them that you just go, right, you're hitting it. And I struck it sweet as I know, and I watched it. And as I struck it, it curled away from him and went right into the top, the top bit. And that's a little bit of luck. Sometimes you need a little bit of luck. But if you don't buy a ticket, you don't get that luck. But probably that would be my favourite goal, yeah.
It was a stunning goal. And then just a question here is, when you signed for Charlton, if you'd have been allowed to take 3 Barnsley players with you, who would you have chosen?
Wow, good question. That's a really good question, yeah. Harry and Dazoo, definitely. Harry, I thought he was a real quality player, Harry. Shez, I'd have took Shez with us because he was a better player than he ever got credit. He was an unbelievable footballer. In my opinion, he was better than his brother, and his brother was a great player. But I thought he was different class, to be honest with you. Plus, as well, I'd have been able to keep my eye on him and keep him out of trouble. And probably John Hendry. On his day, I think Endo was unplayable, and he'd got a real eye for goal.
Yeah, that's a cracking trio. So we took some hidings in the Premier League, as we talked about, but as fans, we always responded really well to all those defeats. If you ignore Sir Alex's condescending comments after that 7-0.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of any other high-profile managers or players giving you words of confidence after a defeat?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were one or two managers that genuinely meant what they said. I know Arsene Wenger said that when they beat us up at Oakwell, I think they beat us 6 or 7 down at Highbury. But when they beat us up at Oakwell, it was close, and we actually played really well. And he said some nice things about us after, about the way we played and how we passed the ball, and and the importance of that at Premier League level. So that was one. Yeah, just thinking, I think in general, I think that there was a feeling that we were a good football side, and I think that was nice. I think that came out of that season. I think that, I think people said nice things about us. I think they were complimentary of the way that we played. We didn't just come in and sit and get everybody back behind the ball. We didn't kick lumps out of people. We went and passed it, and we played. And on the honours day, we could outplay people. And I think managers realise that.
And as the best midfielder to have never played for England, was there ever any rumours that a call-up was on the cards, or was it just something that never materialised at all?
Well, no, I mean, I never got any whispers or anything like that of, I mean, looking at it, probably, I'd be 31, 32. So maybe that came into it, the fact that even if I'd have got a call up, would there been mileage in me, further down the line. So you could probably look at that. But, 15 goals from midfield, you've got to be round about it, haven't you? Looking back, if it had been me and I'd have been manager, I'd have given me a go. But that's football, isn't it?
I feel like you'd have had more of a chance with Southgate now than you might have had back then. It seems like we're a lot more open to bringing in players from unfashionable teams, so to speak.
Well, it's a good point, is that? And I'll tell you for why. Because when I played for Crystal Palace, Gareth Southgate was an apprentice and he used to clean my boots.
Brilliant.
So that there's a chance there I might have got a call up if Gareth had been in charge. Might have been worth a phone call, eh?
Fantastic. So in the Daydream Believers film, Adi Moses talks about this a lot. So you rarely missed a game for Barnsley in 7 years. What was the secret to staying so fit?
A little bit of luck. You need luck. I didn't really get any bad injuries. I love playing. I love training as much as I love playing. And I think that I had an appreciation of how important fitness was. And I were obsessed with goals. I were obsessed with, scoring goals. Danny and Eric and all that, they don't know this, but I had a net at home and a bag of balls. And I used to, when we'd finished training, I used to go out at home, find a pitch where nobody was about. I'd practice my finishing, left and right foot, picking it up, running with it and striking it from distance. And I think goal scorers or genuine goal scorers will tell you that they're obsessed with it. And I was obsessed. I wanted to score. And it didn't do me any harm in the end. But yeah, I mean, I think the fact that you've got to be lucky enough to steer clear away from the bad injuries, and I was fortunate enough, touch wood.
So we heard from Craig Ignat last night, and he pretty much told us that he had the
Barnsley managerial.
By the way. Oh, superb. And I'd forgotten before we did the interview that he had 3 months with Gaza, so that was a good one to talk about. Yeah. But he told us last night that he had the managerial job pretty much sewn up and was ready to start. How close have you been to coming back to Oakwell, either as a manager or a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I met Dave Murphy this time round before the manager was appointed, and it went really well. It was really positive. Got really positive feedback. It got quite close. And I interviewed for the 23 job when Eki was in charge, but I think he gave it to his mate. His mate came up and got the job. So I've been close to coming back. I mean, obviously, like anything else, I'd love to come back now, in some sort of capacity. Obviously, I know the club and the people. I think the big thing at football clubs, is knowing the people. I think that is the biggest thing, because I think.
And then just a bit of a random one, but Considering that we named a bar after you at Oakwell for the last 6 years, I also know there's a South East London cat called Redfearn living in Peckham. What's the biggest honour you've ever received in football?
The biggest honour? That's a good question, actually. I'd have to say probably having the bar named after us at Oakwell, because I look back at some of the quality of players that have been at the club, and I'm talking about people like Mick McCarthy and Ronnie Glavin and people like that, and obviously they never had a bar named after them. So for the people of Barnsley to actually think about and name a bar after me is a real honour.
And then last question. I know you've been down to Redfearn's bar once already, but now we've moved to the fan zone. Can we get you down to Oakwell whenever this season starts again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to try and get down as much as I can this time and have a look. I'm not that far away actually at Pontefract, so I'll get down and cheer the lads on. I speak to Alex Mowat every now and again. He was one of my kids at Barnsley, so I've got vested interest there as well. Not only do I love the club, then I've got young players there that I've had an input in. So definitely, mate, I'll get down.
Well, that was unreal. I've no idea how the Daydream Believers lads did it day after day, reliving those moments from those 2 seasons. Truly amazing times. Thank you ever so much.
No, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
So thanks everyone. We're back at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. We've got former CEO Gauthier Ganay to discuss a completely different aspect of a successful season down at Oakwell South, / Wembley. And hot off the press, we can confirm as of this morning, Luke Steele's going to join us next Thursday, and we'll talk through that amazing debut at Anfield, plus the fact that he was the number 1 at Oakwell for a number of seasons. And that'll kick off at 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 23rd of April. Redders, thanks once again from the Supporters Trust. That was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay safe, everyone. Have a great weekend, and see you all next week.